The program is as follows. In Tanya Perek Vav, the Alter Rebbe started talking about klippos. The nekude that he talked about klippa is that klippa doesn't have to be bad. Klippa has to only be sitra achara. What does sitra achara mean? If it's not kedusha, it's sitra achara. Finish. If it's not bottle, it's anti-bittel. One of the most painful messages in the whole Tanya is this Perek Vav, that there's no such thing as neutral. If it's not bottle to Hashem, as I told you, when it's bottle to Hashem, the Shechina rests. That's kedusha. If it's not bottle, the Shechina doesn't rest, it's klippa. Finished. And the Alter Rebbe says that this world is a pretty bad world. And he brings two l'sheinis. First of all, Olam HaKlipos Sitra Achara, and then Ma'aseh Maza Koshem V'Royim. It's an evil world. And the Alter Rebbe introduces us to two categories of klipos. Shalosh klipos atmeis legamri and klipas noige. Now, bekitzer. Today's shir, Perek Zayin, is going to begin talking about klipas noige. What's the difference in Shalosh klipos atmeis legamri and klipas noige? You're going to see in tomorrow's shir. The difference is that Shalosh klipos atmeis legamri is like if you have a shell. Inside the shell is a spark, yeah? But if you break the shell, you know what you find? The second shell. And you break the second shell, you know what to find? The third shell. You cannot reveal the spark. The lashon that's brought in Maimorim, Hanitut atzmei nasa choshuch, or the Rebbe brings the lumdis, Chaticha atzma nasas nevela, the kosher itself has become treif. The spark of good, in Shalosh klipos atmeis legamri has become evil. The only way to make the spark of good, which is Shalosh klipos atmeis legamri, which is evil, good, is through an extreme avodah, through tshuva, through nisyonis. But regular avodah cannot transform it. And the Alter Rebbe says that goyim and treif comes from Shalosh klipos atmeis legamri. Even treif of tzemeach, like orla, comes from Shalosh klipos atmeis legamri. Heipt on the Alter Rebbe Perek Zayin. However, until now we talk about Shalosh klipos atmeis legamri. Now we're going to talk about klipas noige. Nefesh hachayunis habahamis sheb Yisrael, the soul that animates a yid. That's a behemoth, it's an animal. Now, what do we know about animals? There are evil animals that kill to eat, and there are animals that make moo and eat grass. They're harmless. They're selfish and short-sighted, as I told you 100 times. The third characteristic of an animal, which exists only in the human animal, not in the animal, that in addition to being selfish and short-sighted, they are worried, they're mudagim, they're worried. These characteristics of a Yiddish nefesh habahamis, right, says the Rebbe, the klipa, which comes from klipa, which exists in the blood of a Yid, as discussed in Tanya chapter 1, as well as the nefashis and the animating souls, or behemoths, v'chayis, v'efes, v'dogim, domestic animals, wild animals, birds and fish, to hide them that are kosher. Umutarim ba'achil, that you're allowed to eat. The Rebbe is going to say tomorrow, mutar means that you could crack the shell and find the spark. Aser means you crack the shell, you find the second shell. Mutter means you can actually redeem, you can crack the shell and find the spark. Mutter means untied. Aser means tied down, as you'll see tomorrow. As well as the kiyim, v'chayis, the existence and life, kol daimim, all inanimate things. Stones are not bad, they're neutral, unless it's poison. V'chatamech and all plants, hamutter b'achil, as long as you can eat it. As long as you can eat it means it's not sakona, and it's not isim, it's had orlo, kloya, kerim, and so forth. Says the Alter Rebbe, v'chein, as well as kiyim v'chayis, the existence and life of kol ha'maisa dibur ha'machshava b'nyonei olam hazeh, any action that a Jew does, any word that a Jew speaks, any thought that a Jew thinks, b'nyonei olam hazeh gashmias, she'ein b'hem tzad isa, it's not osir. Yeah, you go to the store, you buy a slice of pizza, it's not osir. You're not eating it l'shem taiva, you're not eating it l'shem shamayim. If you're eating it l'shem shamayim, it becomes kedusha. You're eating it l'shem taiva, you'll see later that at the end of l'fishad descends temporary into Shalosh klipos atmeis legamri. You eat it with no particular kavanah, not a kavanah of taiva, not a kavanah of l'shem shamayim. You just do, you speak words, you think a thought, you do an act. It's not an avera, it's not a mitzvah. You're not thinking l'shem shamayim, you're not thinking to do something for selfish purposes, you're just doing it. Says the Alter Rebbe, lo yishedish lo ya'anav, as not an aveda, not a root of an aveda, nor a branch of an aveda. Mishin samachay mitzvahs later said for the 365 negative commandments. Vanfeim, or their branches, they raisa, which are biblically prohibited, or the rabbanon, even from the rabbanon. The Alter Rebbe is paskening over here that something that the rabbanon made asur becomes Shalosh klipos atmeis. You hear? Yeah, with the raisa. It's klipas noige. When the Chazal add a Issa Derabanan, it becomes Shalosh klipas atmeis legamri. It's a Chiddush Nifla. You know, in Nigla, in Lamdis, they say, what's the Issa Derabanan? Gavre and Chefza. The Eraisa is mitzad the Chefta also, and the Rabbanan almost at the Gavra. The Eraisa, the thing itself is the Aveira or the Mitzvah. And the Rabbanan, the person has the Issa. The Alter Rebbe, when he says that the Rabbanan is Shalosh Klibas at Meis Lagamri, and therefore Ein Behem L'Shedish Le'onof Afilim the Rabbanan of Aveira, he says that the Alter Rebbe holds that Al Pi Kabbalah, something which the Eraisa is mutter. But the Rabbanan is also, the Rabbanan have a koyach to make klipas noiga into shalosh klipas at meis lagamri. The Tzemach Tzedek once saw a woman walking with a bird, and he asked her, "What's this?" So she said he had to shaila. She took it to the Rav, but the Rav said treif. The Tzemach Tzedek called the Rav and showed the Rav that it's kosher. So the Rav said, "I'll change my psak." Someone said, "It's too late. I kosher off a treif stempel. The bird is kosher. You steal the treif." The Rav had a koyach to make klipas nega into shalosh klipas meis lagamri because he was paskening teira b'siyata d'shmaya. He meant it l'shem shamayim, even though technically it was kosher. This is a keich of the Rabbanan. They could make klipas nega into shalosh klipas meis lagamri. Api lam this is tisha zeipashet. They help rak she'ein l'shem shamayim. You're not doing it for the sake of heaven. The will of the body and its desire and its temptation. Even if you need it, you need food to eat. V'kiyum in its existence, v'chayusei in its life. Mamish. It is only shekavanasi ein l'shem shamayim. His intent is not l'shem shamayim. Keidilava to the shem beguf to the shem body. And I repeat again, if you eat it l'shem taiva, the Alter Rebbe is going to say in a few lines from now, it's yet the fishal, it becomes temporary l'shalosh guf nezakam. If you eat it l'shem shamayim, it becomes kedusha. If you eat it with no particular kavanah, it remains klipas noiga. Listen to the words. Lo yadifi, this is no different. Ma'isa dibur machshavas el, these actions, these words, and these thoughts. Mineva shachayunos habahamas b'yata. From the animals also. Your animals also klipas nega. A kosher animal is klipas nega. Kosher tzemerah is klipas nega. Kosher daim is klipas nega. Your actions, when they're not l'shem shamayim, and they're not l'shem taiva, and they're not also, are also klipas nega. So if you eat a meal and not have any particular kavanah, your food is klipas nega. You have a conversation, and you're not a Talmud Chacham. It's mechoyev v'gisa b'yeiman v'layla. It's v'arbetelim b'heter. It's klipas nega. It's not shalosh v'stegam. V'akel sh'ashel akel. All of these categories we mentioned before, ayid, a kosher animal, a kosher bird, a kosher fish, and so on. All of them, nishpa v'nimshach, gets its nourishment and it's drawn down. From the second category of klipas tzedakah. She klipa revius. It's the fourth klipa. Nikras klipas nega. It's called a klipa that has a dim light. That's the literal translation of nega. Shebe'elam hazeh, which is in this world, and nikra elam asiyah, which is called the world of action. And he repeats again, Rubik and kulei rats, and the vast majority evil. Rak ma'atev mura v'seicha, a little bit of good is mixed into it. And part of the Rubik and kulei ra is not only treif. Part of the Rubik and kulei ra is also klipas nega. What's klipas nega? What's klipas nega? So from the point of view of Perek Vav, you should know klipas nega sitra achra. Sitra achra means it's just like treif is anti-God. Just like a murderer is anti-God. A person who eats pizza and he's thinking about himself is anti-God. Finished. Klipas nega sitra achra. This is one of the most painful but important conditions of the Tanya. There's no neutral in Pnimiyas HaTeira. In Nigel, something called the Rishus. Because Hashem said you're not allowed to kill. Hashem never said you're not allowed to eat pizza.
Whatever, you pray, you should do it for the reason.
No. It's anti-God. Finished. Unless it's a potato, it's also to do it. But it's kosher of food I'm allowed to enjoy. So in the language of Sitra Achra means if it's not bottled Hashem, it's anti-Hashem. Klipas nega Sitra Achra. But on the other hand, it's easy to repair. It's easy to make it into Kedusha. That's all. And the little bit of good that exists in this world, many boys, midas tevis never shabaham shabi yisrok, mush kosel il. Al Teves said in Tanya Perek Aleph that the midas tevis the yidas comes from the little bit of good the Selam has it. And I told you then, I repeat now, the good that a yid has never shabaham is altruistic good. He does tzedakah and he does l'shem shamayim. He doesn't want anything back. When a guy gives tzedakah, it's v'chesed l'umam chatas. He wants something reciprocal, something back. It's selfish. A yid's never shabahamis can do charity, and he's thinking only about the person he's giving it to, because a yid has midas tevis b'yetz. Says the Alter Rebbe v'hi.
I've been like people giving doing favors, and that they could never expect anything back in return.
It's called chesed shalem. Vasisa no imadi chesed ve'emes. Next week's
pass. You're saying like a guy, he says someone a Nazi. What are you going to expect to get back?
Okay, we'll talk about that at a different time. It's a good kasha. Some of them were Chassidim and Salem. And Chassidim and Salem come from Klipas Nega, who could be l'shem shamayim. It's an interim state, intermediate level. Between the three severe klippos, on the level of Kedusha. From the point of view of Sitra Achara, Klippas Nega, Sitra Achara. But from the point of view of possibility, it could be lifted up. This is the rule about Klippas Nega. Klippas Nega left alone continues to be Klippas Nega. Kosher food that you eat without a kavanah remains Klippas Nega. But intent changes it. Shalosh Klippas Meis Lagamri. The severe klippas you'll see in the beginning of chapter 8, intent don't make no difference. You eat today for food with the best kavanah, so it's today. Kosher food, intent makes a difference. Kavanah matters. Sometimes it can descend to Shalosh Klippas Meis Lagamri. Now, give you two scenarios. How could Klippas Nega become a Shalosh Klippas Nega? I'm going to give you two examples. Example number one. Meat is kosher. Milk is kosher. Mix them together. Klippas Nega plus Klippas Nega. Another possibility is, as you'll see soon, you eat a taiva l'shem taiva. Kosher taiva. It's Shalosh Klippas Meis Lagamri, but it's very easy to repair, as you'll see soon. Upa'amim, on the other hand, sometimes. It's lifted up. It's lifted up and included, lifted up. This means the good which is in Klippas Nega. Nizbared is given clarity. It's separated and clarified. Me'araf from the evil. Yeah, the first thing you got to do when you have Klippas Nega is separate the good from the bad. Now that the good and bad are separated, it strengthens itself over the evil and rises up, and the bad disappears. Becomes included in holiness. Notice two processes. Process number one, being a separating. Process number two, aliyah, being lifted up into kedusha. The two steps. For example, you eat fat meat from a tura. Tura means an ox. You drink wine which is very, very delicately flavored with besamim. Laharchiv daite to broaden your mind on Hashem will tell us the Eibishter into His Torah. Could Omer Rav, the Gemara says that Rav used to say, Chamer v'reicha chuli, wine and a good smell help me learn Torah. And then the Gemara says soon that ad le'achil lebisa de Torah le'adayin etam v'shadav, that when they ate the meat of an animal, it gave them a clarity in understanding Torah Sheba'al Peh. Rabbeinu Tam used to keep money on his table because it helped him understand Torah best. The Tzemach Tzedek kept money on his table to be marchiv daite to learn Torah. Or b'shalakayim mitzvahs. You want to do a mitzvah like Einik Shabbos v'Yom Tov. The life of the meat and the wine becomes separated from the Klippas Nega. Shaya Nishra with Klippas Nega. The bad is disposed, and after it's separated, the good part is goes up to the Eibush like a carbon. Moreover, you make a joke. But the point of making the joke is to open up the mind, to bring joy in the heart to Hashem. You know, the Rebbe has a commentary. How come by food he said Lavaya Terase, and by Bedicha says Lavaya v'Terase v'Avidose? Shetrichim liyas b'simcha must be done with joy. Rabbi is telling his Talmidim a joke. Or the Gemara says Rabbi. Sha'amal of milk the Bedichas they would say a joke tchila first the Bat Charabon and the Talmidim would laugh, and this laughter opened them up to learning Torah. This is called Klippas Nega, which can descend and it can ascend. It has to do with intent, and we'll continue tomorrow in Mitzvah.